And welcome back to the Midday Show. We just made it. We were almost the late afternoon show. Is it
almost
early afternoon show?
And just before you go, this was not our fault. It was requested to us because, well, it's kind of our fault because people were filming in another part of the office. Yeah. And basically in a roundabout way, they said, you two are too loud. And if we try to film while you're on, it's going to be worthless. So can you just wait a minute? So we did.
So we took the back seat here.
Because we are team players.
I would like to think so. I hope so. We're going to talk a little bit about.
We're also apparently really loud.
That's not surprising.
Can you imagine? Passionate is what we like to say.
You know how I know we're loud is when one of the microphones is down, you can still hear us. So I know we're loud. We're going to talk about the Williamsport River Valley Transit, some stuff this week coming out about a recent audit and their balance sheet.
Have you seen $11 million? Because it's missing.
It's missing. I have not seen it.
Should we start checking the couch cushions?
If I start walking in with like some really nice suits, you could, if all of a sudden my dress apparel changes, maybe you look into me, but I personally have not seen it.
When's the last time, not to get off, when's the last time you lost something of value other than your car keys? Like if you lost your wallet and gone on a day search?
I used to have a gold chain with a number 2, and I think I could be wrong. My parents, I believe, got me the 2. My grandmother got me the gold chain, and it was nice. And I lost it at the beach. I could not find it. And that was a pretty valuable.
And it's gone.
It's gone. Now since then, I've gotten a new number 2 and another gold chain, and it kind of stays, hidden. But I lost that. So that was kind of like, that was the only time I've really lost something that was of value.
The last time, I remember maybe a year or two ago, I lost my wallet for a day and a half to the point where I was like, I'm gonna have to cancel my credit cards. And it ended up in the back of my mom's car with all the stuff because I took my son and a bunch of his friends to the gym. Mm-hmm. So she has a bigger car with a back seat and all that stuff. And so I piled, because the kids had taken all, so I threw it all in the trunk. Yeah. And I ended up looking for something else, like, where are my sneakers? I bet I took them to the gym, and I opened it up, and there was my wallet.
See, I've made this argument to other people. The wallet is more of an annoyance than a loss, because you cancel the cards, you get the new ID, and you replace the wallet.
That's fair.
So it's more of an annoyance than the actual value of what you're losing. Now, that's if you responsibly cancel everything, and because otherwise, yes, it can be a value loss.
About 2 weeks ago, I couldn't find my computer. Was in my black computer bag.
Okay.
And when I come in the house, I set it here, I set it there, it gets moved. I'm all,
you know what? Keep going.
And so a couple weeks ago, I was like, well, it's not here, it's not here, it's not here. And I was kind of in a hurry. And then you're just like, where is it? I drove to one office, and I was like, it wasn't in my real estate office. And then I'm looking in places like, I'll go look in my real estate office.
Right.
I know I haven't even been there since the last time I had it.
Right.
And then I was like, I'm going to come up here and check, but I know I left with it there. So I was literally almost to the panic mode. And then I remembered that I worked out on the back deck the morning before, got a phone call, got distracted. And I was like, I'll bet everything's still set up on the deck. And it was. So that was the last time I did it.
You refresh my memory. I went on a trip. My flight got rearranged to Miami, Florida, and we had a layover. My laptop was in the bag that got put into the layover. And when we got back to Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, my girlfriend and I noticed that my laptop was no longer in the bag. So I'd forgotten that was.
Oh, so that got stolen.
That was 13-4. Yeah, I wasn't lost. It was stolen.
Okay, that's different.
Okay, that's different. Then that one doesn't count.
This is just the aspect if you put it somewhere, you can't remember where you put it because you're an idiot, or you put it someplace really stupid. Have you've done that with your keys and stuff? You're like, why the hell did I put them there?
One of the only I am in no way an organizational mastermind. One of the few things that OCD has done for me, I very rarely lose daily things because you've seen me, everything goes in the same place every time. When I walk into a house or I walk into this office, my wallet goes here, my keys go there, my phone goes. So that OCD, I've not lost very much.
So you're never one of these, hey, call my phone, I can't find it,
Very rare. I mean, I can, on one hand, I can tell you how many times I couldn't find my phone.
Good for you. But I should.
The beach is my kryptonite. Because I don't have that ability. So I've lost keys at the beach. I've lost jewelry at the beach. I've lost a plethora of stuff at the beach.
Did you ever lose $11 million at the beach?
I did not. So you can find this great piece done by our editor here at NorthcentralPa.com, Carrie Pauling. Evidence of fraud, River Valley Transit audit uncovers inconsistencies. This was an article that we put out Tuesday. They just recently had a city council meeting last night. So we're going to start with the Tuesday piece and then move over to the actual meeting that they had yesterday. The article starts out during a city council finance committee meeting on Tuesday. RKL, the accounting and business consulting firm hired to perform an audit on Williamsport's River Valley Transit financials, revealed to the committee they found inconsistencies in the budget from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. RKL issued an adverse opinion in their audit regarding the balances on the financial statements, assets owed, and liabilities related to the RVT. The initial red flag was transit authorities should not carry debt, as their funding comes from Federal Transit Authority and PennDOT. RVT is currently carrying almost an $11 million debt. So
we should tell our people, if you stumble across $11 million, just message us.
Yes.
And we'll help you out.
The city is looking for it. This is the big thing. Not so much that here's the two keys. Lots of companies, organizations, even government facilities are run at a deficit.
Operate in debt.
There's supposed to be no debt in this instance because everything comes from PennDOT, comes from the state through grants that are supposed to be spent by the actual transit authority itself. And then the second part of this is we're not $1 million in debt, not 11. So when you throw those two things into it, it makes it a pretty substantial amount and a pretty substantial story.
Yes, and this is when Derek Slaughter took over as mayor, like the first thing he did was fire the guy that Bill Nichols, who I don't even know what his title. He ran RVT and he ran the finance something. I don't know. That's the first thing he did because when Derek, before he was mayor, was on city council and knew something was amiss.
Yes. So the actual story that Carrie has here, just days after taking office, Slaughter terminated longtime director of finance, William Nichols Jr., who had worked for the city for more than 40 years. I think he began in 1978.
Director of finance. Okay.
Director of finance, but he was also the manager for River Valley Transit. So essentially, he was almost like his own boss in a way.
Yes.
From a financial reckoning, he was his own boss, essentially.
Which happens all the time in the private sector.
Yes.
Because it's your money.
Correct.
In the public sector, there needs to be a better checks and balance system because it's not your money.
Yes.
If you run your own pizza shop and you embezzle your own money, then it's just kind of like an IRS thing.
Right.
But like this is public funds.
Yes. Slaughter said he became aware of the discrepancies in the city's finances while serving on city council. Shortly after becoming mayor, he sent a report to the Lycoming County District Attorney Ryan Gardner. Gardner subsequently sent the report to Attorney General Josh Shapiro's office. Part of what kind of came out of that was a new audit company, and this was the first time that they have actually presented their findings between 2019 and June of 2020. The direct quote from the guy's name is Zettelmoyer. I want to make sure I have his title right here before I actually read.
He's one of the big wigs with the audit company.
He is. So he works for RKL. During his presentation, he said, "We found numbers we can't quite get comfortable with. When we look at capital assets, RVT was buying numerous capital assets. They appeared to be using funds that were not transit related." So the first issue, even before you get to the debt, is they were spending money that was allocated from PennDOT for transit, and they were using it in other aspects of government, which is a no-no. I don't want to make it sound like they killed people, but it is certainly a no-no.
Right.
But however, it ended up going deeper than that. Quote from Zettelmoyer: "When you incur costs, the grants are deemed earned and comes off of liabilities. There were a number of expenses, particularly early on in the year, that weren't related to public transfer that were charged. The bigger issue is PennDOT could call back for those funds if they should."
Yeah, we don't know how that works. Because if PennDOT's like, we gave you this money to spend, you spend it somewhere else, you need to reimburse us.
And we have to give it back.
Because when
you're already $11 million in debt, it's going to be very hard to pay back PennDOT. Right. I'm assuming.
I would get. I don't know how it works. I can't believe they would do that. I would suspect that they would like give less in the future? Like if they were going to give, if they give
Like
$1 million less over years and pay it off, because they're public, the city of Williamsport's public, like it would cause a disaster. But all this was an article Tuesday. This was when it was first, when the audit was released to the finance committee on Tuesday.
Yes.
Now we had a full council meeting last night.
We're moving because there's more details here.
Do we need more details? Are you
excited for Thursday?
Whatever. We're building up to. There's more to this.
Yes. So one of the things that Zettelmoyer had pointed out, the River Valley Transit had wrote checks to IMTA in the amount of $65,000, but showed a reimbursement in the amount of $550,000. So essentially the concept of putting out more money and then receiving more back, but not knowing where it actually is or what it actually went to. Zettelmoyer's direct quote to this was, "It seems to be some kind of shell game. I am suggesting deceptive or evasive record keeping. RVT could have requested a grant from the FTA or PennDOT related to those vans. We don't know why that approach was taken." And this would come up even more so on Thursday during the meeting. So on Thursday, they kind of dove into kind of that allotment and the idea of signing checks, handing them back, and then not knowing where the money went as well. But anything else from the Tuesday article?
Well, when the auditor says shell game, evasive and deceptive,
yes,
those are not good words.
No.
Because this is what the auditor does, and probably 90% of the auditor's work comes out like it's supposed to. Yes. They're a double check. Like when I was on the Montoursville Little League board, we had an audit every year.
Right.
We had an accounting firm that audited our books just to make sure everything. Now, Little League is not nearly as complex as this.
Sure.
But this is not like, I don't want to say auditors aren't like police investigators. Like there's a crime and here they come. Auditors do audits on books that are balanced all the time, just as part of the checks and balance system. So for them to come out, because I don't want people to think like they say, "Oh, this is evasive. It was a shell game." Like they don't deal with bad audits nearly as much as they deal with good audits. So this is,
I would argue for them, this is probably rare.
This is rare.
Yes. Okay. So going into, so this was on Tuesday. Slaughter made some statements as well, which we may bounce back to as we pertain to Thursday. So going into this meeting on Thursday, and I'm not sure where you want to start with it, but let's go here.
There's a lot of meat on this bone.
There's some meat on this bone. We'll start here. They met Thursday. The chair of the finance committee was not at the Thursday meeting.
Correct.
The meeting was held virtual. There was no public comment to be had at the virtual meeting, which is unusual because almost every other source of government that's happening right now, whether it's like commissioners or school boards or whatever it is, almost all of them are now back to having meetings in person.
Right. Sometimes you have to wear masks or the people, but I was just at a school board meeting the other night. It's in person.
Yes.
The county commissioners in person.
Yes.
So I point because they're right over there.
Unusual for them to have a meeting virtual, especially when everyone else is doing it. Liz Mealy was not present. She is the chair of finance committee. We have been seeking quotes from different council members and from Mayor Slaughter as to exactly what's going on there.
And not only was she absent,
yes,
it was an unexplained absence.
Yes.
Because lots of times, if you're at a school board meeting, you're at Little League, any meetings, at a church meeting, you're like, hey, Bob's on vacation.
Sure.
That's why he's not here. So when you have when you have monthly meetings or whatever, it's not uncommon for people to miss. She was there Tuesday. She's the chair of the finance committee. The meeting is on Zoom. So she could be in Wichita.
Right.
And could Zoom in. She's not there and unexplained.
Yes. So we're trying to find out exactly what happened with that. Essentially, as they began to give their audit presentation, remember, they had already kind of gone over this on Tuesday as well. As they began to do it, one of the things that was explained is that when PennDOT gives their grants to the city, the idea is that the city will have a percentage in which they are supposed to match of that. So the city will actually write a check and hand it over to the transit to make sure that PennDOT will give the amount that they're willing to give. So just for even numbers' sake, the example that was used in the video, he said that if PennDOT was going to give $4 million, they might say to the city of Williamsport, you guys give $400,000 and then that way, and we'll both do our part. So the city would write a check for $400,000. The transit would then say, we are going to go get local municipalities to donate and put in their part so they could give some of the money back to the city of Williamsport. So they would then write a check for like $100,000 back to the city of Williamsport. However, there was no actual proof or record that local municipalities actually gave money back towards that. So whether or not the money is missing, whether or not the money was actually never like gone out and collected, they do not know that based off of the meeting on Thursday night. But certainly, as he said, I believe in the video, he said that it's unexplainable, which in the audit world is essentially saying like something is not right here.
We don't know. They paid in cash and we don't know where it went.
Correct.
So listen, when you're, obviously this is bad. And for people, when you take someone like Slaughter, who inherited this mess when he became the mayor, but then you've got people who've been on city council for years and years, and decades and more. And now you look at them and say, well, how did it ever get to this way? Where is the checks and balance system? You just, with all these things, we want transparency, and people want people to come to the podium to answer the hard questions, to take ownership, to take accountability, and to be transparent. The way not to be transparent is to do a Zoom meeting with no public comment, to have the chair of the finance committee not show up and give no explanation why she's not there.
Sure.
And then to go even further, Bonnie Katz, who's also on the finance committee, said that she is a quote unquote newbie with audits and was unaware that Williamsport was supposed to keep their own house in order. She was under the assumption that PennDOT would, after they gave the money, would monitor where it went.
Right.
So she's on the finance committee and says she's never seen I think her quote, don't quote, the Zoom meeting is online, that she's a newbie with audits. She's never seen an audit. She's on the finance committee.
So what she had said in the meeting last night was that it was her first time seeing an audit for the transit. And so she has, my understanding is that she's now coming up on almost a dozen years of service.
So it's her first one for it's not her first audit. Well, it's just her first one for the transit.
I believe city audits have been made public, as you and I have seen. So the actual city audits, like you can go and look at them. However, for the transit itself, the way that I took her statement in the meeting was that she herself had never seen one of the transit audits for the first time. Now, we know that it is very, 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 very likely that audits were being done, because I believe the company's name was Baker Tilly. Baker Tilly was they were hired, like they were paid, like they came in and did the audits. So whether or not what happened to those audits, what Nichols did with them, where they went to, whether or not the financial committee actually ever got to them, if they were handed off to them, we don't know. We don't. But it can be speculated that there were in fact audits done. Why they never made it to the finance committee or to the people there is beyond me. That's very
right now it's beyond everyone.
Yeah.
And when you just to take a step back and look at the big picture, that Slaughter was on city council before he ran for mayor. Mm-hmm. His experience with local government was being on city council, where all these other people are on city council. The first thing that he did when he became mayor was fire Nichols. Mm-hmm. So he could tell from city council that something was sketchy. So then how do we have all these other people on city council who sat there on the finance committee, had no idea? Yeah. And how long had they been there, sitting there, and had no idea? Because I think Slaughter did he only serve one term on council?
I'm not sure how long. I'm not sure how long Slaughter was.
I don't know how many. I think he won once on council and once to the mayor's office. Okay. But be that as it may.
Yes. So that was just some of the other things.
And all these people are up for election in 3 weeks, 2 weeks. It's maybe not all of them. I shouldn't say that.
There's an article on NorthcentralPa.com. You can go and see who's running for re-election.
Who's running for re-election and who's not. I don't know if everyone's up for re-election, but
the other part of this too was Baker Tilly left on their own. which is very unusual in the audit world because like to drop a client of this magnitude, it's just not something you typically
We
do.
suspect.
Yes.
We're not audit experts. It seems like you don't dump big clients.
Correct. And they left themselves when Mayor came into
They
office.
left voluntarily.
Yes. So that is, call it a red flag, call it a coincidence, you decide. But it's worth noting for sure as we go more and more into this. Anything else from it that you wanted to touch on? You can find it on our Facebook at North Central PA if you're interested in watching last night's meeting. And you can also go to Williamsport City Council online as well, and you can see last night's previous meeting. Anything else?
I mean, it's going to be interesting because the election is so close.
Yes.
Are any of the, especially Liz Mealy, since she's the chair of the finance committee and she was a no-show at the meeting, is she going to make herself available for questions and public comment between now and election time? That is the big, what is going to happen between now and election time? Because one of the things, I watched bits and pieces of the meeting today. I know we had people here that watched it last night. They were shocked at the lack of discussion amongst other council members after this had been brought up.
Right.
Almost like the council said, let's not talk about this. There's no one here to bring it up because we're not taking public comment. So we're going to discuss this at a later date.
There was also, I don't know if you remember this or not. I was talking with our editor about it. When Slaughter was in, if you go back through and you look up the old meetings, Slaughter kind of went toe to toe with Nichols when he was on city council, kind of saying like, where is the budget? Where are the financials? Why can't we see them? And there was almost none of that last night. Not that there was necessarily like a discovery because the audit was already be putting out in front, but the silence was very, very surprising for the most part. I was just surprised at how little actual discussion there was. Like they presented, and maybe it happened on Tuesday, right? Like they were already presented stuff on Tuesday. Maybe there was actual discussion then, but I guess like that also shows the value of having like a public meeting with public comment.
Correct.
Because they may have discussed, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
I know what you're saying.
And I'm saying they may have done this on Tuesday already. Like maybe they had the deeper conversations but like for a Thursday meeting for the public and then to just kind of like not have questions really brought up, to not really discuss it within any depth, and to not allow just the public to comment on it. I don't know. It was very, very, pick the word you want to use.
Cowardice?
It just didn't feel entirely forthright.
It did not feel entirely forthright. That's very diplomatically said.
Thank you.
There's no way in hell they wanted public comment last night.
That would seem apparent to me.
And so they dodged it. And that doesn't seem right.
The timing of the election, like you brought that up, because to be honest, I've been so deep diving into it here for the last couple of hours. The timing with the election right behind it is very, very red flaggish as well.
Yes.
Almost like just trying to get to.
So we'll see what is today, the 22nd.
Yes.
So with election day 2 weeks away, we will see what happens. Do you know when election day is? Do you know the pattern with election day?
No, I have never looked.
It's the first Tuesday in November, as long as it can't be November 1st.
Okay.
And I don't know why that is.
You don't know.
There's some rule. And I'm 99% sure on that.
Okay.
It's the first Tuesday as long as. I think it. This is what I think it really says. The first Tuesday that follows the first Monday.
Okay.
So if there is if the 31st is Monday, then it's not. It has to be. It's a roundabout way of saying it can't be the first.
Okay.
But I have no idea why. But someone smarter than me, who's a government person, can explain it to you.
Okay.
I do know this too. Not to go off on a tangent.
Can I tie this up first?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So just to wrap it up again, you can read Tuesday's article, Evidence of Fraud, River Valley Transit Audit Uncovers Inconsistency. Carrie Pauling knocked this out of the park. You can find it at NorthcentralPa.com. I would suggest going to read it. It's very well done, very easy to read. I would read this first, then if you're interested, I would dive into last night's meeting and just kind of see the debacle that was the city council meeting last night.
Well said.
Yes. Okay. There you go. Just wanted to wrap that up for us.
Oh, okay. So back to my civics history lesson.
There you
know
go.
what? The Electoral College, it meets whatever it is, 2 weeks, 3 weeks after the election.
Okay.
There's some gap.
Okay.
The reason for that gap is because that is how long it took someone by stagecoach to get from Ohio.
I have heard that.
To Washington.
Yep, I have heard that.
And now in modern times, even though we're not doing anything by stagecoach anymore, that's how we do it. That's what we do.
People don't like change. I told you that yesterday.
No, they do not. Although, you know what else they don't like? Stagecoaches.
We're past that. This is, I mean, sad, awful, however you want to describe this story. I'm sure most of you have seen the Alec Baldwin incident that occurred on the set of Rust, I believe is what the movie was.
They're filming a movie, yeah.
I believe the movie was going to be called Rust on the set. Alec Baldwin, unfortunately, fired a gun that was supposed to be kind of a movie prop. We're assuming it should have had blanks in it. And unfortunately, there was a live round in the gun. And the gun went off, unfortunately killing one and injuring another. And you and I touched on this a little bit before.
Well, and to say that the injured was the director.
Yes.
The killing was director of photography. So
yes.
It's not that this matters, but it's not like it was some, college intern that was just this was involved. Like all these people were around, and this wasn't a backstage accident. This was
it was happening in the moment of filming, I'm assuming.
Right.
So there's a lot of different ways to go with this. I do eventually want to talk about Alec Baldwin a little bit. How do you want to dive into the legalities? You want to dive into Alec Baldwin? You want to dive into kind of what it's like being on a set, or
I mean, the first thing I would just say, and I learned this. We've discussed this with Bruce Lee's kid, Brandon. Brandon Lee was accidentally killed way back. It was early '90s, I think, during filming of The Crow. John Eric Hexum, which if you're old like me, you remember the show Voyagers, which was kind of like a precursor to Quantum Leap, where they used to travel through time and fix history and stuff like that. And John Eric Hexum did it with a gun that shot blanks, and he was just messing around. And he didn't realize, and he killed himself. And there is the thing that I learned from those stories 100 years ago. I am far from a gun expert, but there is a discharge of some sort. It's not a bullet, but there is a discharge. So people do get injured or even sometimes killed by guns that are shooting blanks. Now, right now, nobody really knows, at least they haven't said, there's investigation. No one knows what was in it, if there was accidental, but the story we got to was now the legalities of, because someone came out and said that the person holding the gun is responsible for knowing whether the gun is actually loaded or not, which, as we discussed, in the real world, 99.99% of the time, yes. But in this aspect, they came out of a dressing room, going through their lines, going through where they stand, and someone handed Alec Baldwin a gun that he would just assumed was not dangerous.
Sure.
So as we get into the legal world of this, is there any way that he gets held responsible? Because they say the gun holder is the one ultimately responsible. I think when it all shakes down in the court of public opinion, he's going to be seen as, people are going to feel sorry for him, because apparently he's like beside himself, distraught.
And rightfully so.
Right.
I will say this. I think the majority right now, from what I can tell from like friends and family and then online and my feeds, and I would argue the majority of people sympathize with Alec Baldwin. I think I said to you, my personal opinion, morally, I don't think he should be held responsible. I don't think he had any ill intent. Whether or not you want to talk about the responsibility, I've said to you, I think a really good lawyer, like if the right lawyer went after him, I unfortunately do think he could get manslaughter by the letter of the law. And again, like I said, from a morality standpoint, I don't think he should go to jail. I don't think he should get manslaughter. But like a good lawyer, I think a good lawyer with the right jury could probably do it.
See, I don't think a jury would ever, knowing that he's.
I think it's unlikely, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. The question is, does somebody really, like, I don't know the family of the deceased. I don't know the family of the director. I don't know who underneath would have been responsible for the gun, or the movie company that might be responsible. I don't know who may want to come after Alec Baldwin, whether it's they're upset, whether it's to protect themselves, right? Like if somebody else gets the finger pointed at them and they're like, well, that's the person that fired the weapon. I don't know who it may be. I'm just saying that, like, if there's somebody with enough motivation and the right person goes to bat for them from the legal procedure, unfortunately, I do think there's an on paper argument where I don't want to say I get it, but I certainly could see how he could lose.
I get what you're saying. I don't think in the realistic world, like the example I gave to you is, it's like, as an actor, if you were told to get in a car and you were driving the people, there are other people in the car, and the lug nuts on your front tires weren't tightened,
sure,
and the wheels fell off. Now, is it the car owner's responsibility to go around and check the lug nuts, or is there a reasonable assumption of, to go to a real world thing, if a bartender makes a drink and pours something in the drink, and then the waitress carries the drink to the table, is it the waitress's fault because they didn't? And I understand gun ownership or gun handling is different, but there's also an understood level of past, like when Alec Baldwin, as a lifelong actor, when he's handed a gun on a set and there's lights and they're talking and there's action, he is under no way believing that there is anyone in any danger.
I agree with you. There's no ill intent. I 100% believe that. I would, to play devil's advocate, and again, I'm kind of going against like my own grain here, because like I don't think he should be responsible, and I don't. But if I were to play devil's advocate, I would say to you, like, if I were playing a role, you kind of dive into the role, right? So this is a horrible example, but I said, if I was going to be a golfer in a movie, guess where I'm going to be for the next 9 months? I'm learning the etiquette of golf. I'm learning how to take care of my clubs, the safety of a golf course, like all those things. And so my fear would be, like, if you're the movie company or you're the person passing the gun off, whoever it is there this concept or this idea that, like, if you're going to be in a Western and you're going to be handling a gun, is there an irresponsibility for him saying, like, I didn't know it was loaded. I didn't check if it was loaded. I don't even really know, like, I don't really use guns all that often. And so all I'm saying is, I get how someone could find the loopholes to pull this off. I really do.
But that would be like saying, if you're going to be in a Western, I can understand that you're learning how to ride a horse, because that would be part of it.
Sure.
But do you have to learn how to care for a horse? Because in the Old West, if you would have been that outlaw, you would have had to understand.
You don't need to know how to take the horse home with you, but like, you certainly need to know what to do when you are on the horse.
Correct.
So he doesn't need to know how to, like, polish the gun or take the gun home. But what I'm saying is, like, if a lawyer wanted to make the argument, like, he needs to know how to handle the gun and he needs to know how to check. And personally, the first thing I was always taught is you always see if the gun is loaded, and you always look in the chamber, and it's the very first thing that you're kind of, and again, I sympathize with him. I cannot imagine what he is going through right now. But so all I'm saying is, like, from a lawyer's perspective, once that's passed off to you, I have always been taught, always, that, like, that is now what you're holding, and the responsibility that you have once you're holding it, that is onto you. And so I get it. The people who are kind of like, oh, it could be this, that, I kind of see what they're saying.
You've never been anywhere where because of, our lives, and because you've never been anywhere where there wasn't a reasonable chance that ammunition was around, that the gun might have ammunition in.
Can I cut you off real quick?
Sure.
Because that's one of the things, one of the things you were taught is, like, a gun is a gun is a gun. Like, it is like,
but on a movie set, there wouldn't be any bullets.
It's a gun. And again, I don't think he should be put in manslaughter. I'm playing devil's advocate. A gun is a gun is a gun. And, like, even though it was used as a prop, any gun user, any gun owner understands loaded, unloaded, blanks, live ammunition, whatever it is, a gun is a gun. And you have to treat it as such. So again, I get what you're saying, but my point is,
wouldn't it be a safe assumption that there was no live ammunition anywhere on the set?
And I think that's the point I'm trying to make to you is there are people in America that would argue to you that like it's not good enough to assume. Now again, how far down do you want to pass this down the line? Does it go to the person who handed the gun off to him? Does it go to the movie company who didn't have procedures in place, possibly? Right? Like, is it that should if you're making
may
a
go
Western,
to the gun manufacturer
it
if
could.
It was a blank and it missed. Who knows?
It could. Well, right now they're saying it was live ammunition.
Oh, okay.
That's what the reports are saying. Could it come down to the idea of like, are there new procedures in place now that like if you're doing a Western, if you're doing an old whatever, like you have to have so many weeks of gun safety, like, and maybe they do some of that already. I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's as open and shut. If somebody wanted to go find the fine print and wanted to like make this an issue, I think I think
the other aspect that comes from it too is like these aren't strangers. This is the director. Baldwin's one of the producers. So this is the director of photography. So she is like the big wig that sets up all the shots. So these are his friends. Yeah. Maybe not lifelong friends, but for this point in time, they're his friends. So I would doubt that the family is holding Baldwin responsible at all. Maybe it wouldn't surprise me if they come after the film company or whomever hired the person that handed Baldwin, they're coming after money somewhere.
Yes.
But I doubt it's Baldwin. Now, the other thing to throw this bow and not to take it into a corny aspect, but Baldwin is the guy who on Saturday Night Live made fun of Trump week after week after week. Does that play into it? Because the right doesn't like anyone that made fun of Trump.
I mean, for me personally, I had forgotten about it. Like, I didn't remember it until you had said it when we were sitting here kind of talking pre-show.
Oh, wow. To me, that's his most famous role.
See, for me, like, it's 30 Rock. I just watched The Departed. He's great in that. Like,
he is great.
So for me, like, the SNL thing is certainly part of his portfolio. I honest to God, until you said that, I was kind of, oh, yeah, like, I hadn't even.
That's why I just enlighten you every day.
You do. It's just for me. I've said to you, the other part of this, and I said to you before, I completely removing the whole gun aspect now and completely removing away from that conversation. I feel absolutely awful for Alec Baldwin. And the reason for that is I really don't know if he'll ever be himself again.
For the rest of his life.
For the rest of his life. And I say that I have so much sympathy for him. I've had people in my life who accidentally hit somebody with their car.
Right.
I've had people that have had these things happen to themselves in real life, and you can just see there's just a glimmer that kind of escapes you, and ever getting it back is unbelievably difficult.
Yes, this happened to a famous person, but there's lots of unfamous people who have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, or something like this happened that was totally not their fault, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it is to recover from this, whether you're a world famous movie star, whether you're Joe Schmo in the corner, like this could be a burden to carry for the rest of his life.
And it's not even that. It's not about like Alec Baldwin was this perfect person or anything. Alec Baldwin, it was the charisma, it was the smoothness. There is a level of confidence when Alec Baldwin has when he walks into a room that makes him Alec Baldwin. And so I just wonder if we will ever see that again. I really sympathize with him because it is sad that somebody lost their life. In a weird way, Alec Baldwin also lost a part of himself. I truly don't think he'll ever be himself again.
I said to you beforehand, and again, the director of photography is the one that's passed away. Mm-hmm. The director is in the hospital, I guess, and we don't know the extent, how serious or life-threatening. I said to you beforehand, there's no way this film gets finished. You said it depends how far, because The Crow did get finished, I think, with Brandon Lee.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I had.
My daughter texted me right before we went on and said, oh my gosh, did you hear the Alec Baldwin? And I said, yeah, whatever. And her response was, there's no way they're ever finishing this film. And so that is one of the aspects, again, because it wasn't some extra. It wasn't some like these were people, and not just from a work standpoint, because you can find any person.
Sure.
But just the friend, it just may be too painful. It's like the people who have to move because going back home after a death or something is just too painful and they can't live in that house anymore.
Right.
So coming back to this to finish filming may just be too painful and they may never do it.
It's an awful story. Just to step away from it, because I don't know, you're not a huge Lord of the Rings fan.
By I'm not a huge fan, you mean I say I don't get it.
Yeah, and that's fine. There's a story online you can find up, and I'm hoping that I'm getting the character and the actor right. Viggo Mortensen, who
I know that name.
Okay, so he was in this in the Lord of the Rings. There was a scene where somebody actually threw, I forget what it was, but somebody threw like a battle axe or something, a knife, something at him, and the scene called for him to like block it with his sword. And as they're filming the scene, and again, you can find this, they throw the knife and he swings up the sword.
It missed.
And there's like sparks, like when the knife hits the sword and you can hear like the cling. And when they finish it, you can see like he's in shock because it dawns on him
that
it was
really hurt.
It was a real knife. They had the wrong, I guess they might have had multiple or they forgot to switch out. And so like, in a lucky swing of the sword that the scene called for, like he didn't just do it in the movie. He actually accidentally did it in real life. And you, like I said, they say cut and he doesn't move. Like you can see he's just like in absolute shock because he knows it was that close. And it is so just a neat little tidbit for any Lord of the Rings fans and stuff like that. I think what's going to come out of this is movie set, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Legislation, safety. And listen, I know they've got red tape left and right.
Well, now it's funny because right now they're dealing with this, that they're shooting, 30-hour days and that they never get breaks and they never.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's when they filmed my movie, they filmed it all in 3 weeks.
Yeah. And
they were on set and, you got to film some at night and you got to film some in the day. But like it was Monday through Friday all day.
Yeah.
And then the weekends, the director and the director of photography so they kind of figured out what do we have, what don't we have. The actors went and did their thing and rested. Right. Then they're like, what do we have to do next week? And what do we have to redo that didn't come out right? And we have to, but it is because, time is money and, to work a 12-hour day and to get it done in 3 weeks is better than working 8-hour days and getting it done in 5 weeks because you have to pay for food, you have to pay hotels, you have to pay per diems, and all these people on the set that are getting, it's that's the way the business works. And right now they're under a lot of fire for that.
Yeah. Because
what the people are saying is we're working 18-hour days, then we have to drive home to somewhere, and it's dangerous, which is hard to argue.
Yeah, no, it is. Did you want to talk about Brain Laundrie real quick?
I
don't know if we have like a real angle on it, but
we don't have. I just the one thing you brought up a really good point. That in society, is where I'm 49 years old. So I hear someone who's 23 years old, and to me they're a kid. They're a college kid. They're just because now that what the hell did we know at 23?
Sure.
But in your aspect, like they're adults. They're not 16-year-old kids. They are adults. And that's one of the things that you pointed out that you think has got lost in this.
I think you brought up a very good point about how you spend 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks with anybody in a van and you weren't making excuses for Brain Laundrie. Your point was just this idea of like, who would have thought it was a good idea to throw those two kids in a van for 2 months together?
Well, I said from their parents' side to be like, listen, I know this sounds all romantic and everything, but like, I mean, you can take the happiest couples in the world that have been married 30 years. You put them in a van for 2.5 months together, and they're going to drive each other crazy.
And so my whole thing, and if you watch the media, like I don't think it's even like there's a lot of stuff the media does that I find intentional or what they try to do. This was different in the sense of I think just because of her appearance and his appearance and just this idea of like they were finding themselves and they're trying to start life. And so there became this kind of like aura around them, like they were a couple of teenagers like jaunting across the country. And I think that does a disservice to kind of the facts of the story, because whether we want to admit it or not, like these were two adults.
Right.
So the idea that like the parents would have told them no, or that somebody you can advise them, but the reality of it is that like if Gabby wanted to get in that van, like she's 23, like if Brain Laundrie wants to get in that van. Now the flip side of that, what I said to you is there was no reason either of them had to stick around.
Well, yes, I know.
I think Brain Laundrie probably wasn't a good person, even if he doesn't get in that van, go across the country.
Right. The point you made is like, if you're in the van with your girlfriend for 2 months, it becomes strained. If I'm in the van with a girlfriend for 2 months, it becomes strained. But we're not killing anyone. That there's something off with this kid anyway, that ends up being where it goes.
You're going to the nearest bus station. You're calling your friend. There was multiple times to kind of get out of this if you were unhappy, or so to me, like it's very hard to find. You weren't looking for an excuse for Brain Laundrie, but like where I end up going with this discussion is like, it's very hard to think that regardless of whether or not Brain Laundrie got on that van, that there probably wasn't some type of negative streak in him. There probably wasn't some type of, because just it wasn't 2 days. It wasn't 2 hours. Like he had over 2 months to basically pack up his stuff and go, or figure out a way out of it, or I don't know. I
guess the point I'm making, because you're right, they are 23, and if they want to go, they're going to go. I wonder if the parents are like, this is probably a bad idea. Or if the parents, because maybe you're like, listen, you're 23. You know, when you're older, you have responsibilities, you have jobs, you have kids. You can't do this. No. If you want to go on a cross-country adventure, because who would think that this is going to be the result? So I guess maybe
I told you one of the greatest gifts my parents ever gave me was like they kind of tossed me the keys and said, if you leave the state, call us. I can remember my dad saying like all roads lead to somewhere. Like if you go too far, make sure we know you went to like. And it truly was one of the best gifts they ever gave me, like the freedom to kind of go and do. I guess the difference there is like. And there was never this idea that like it would snowball into that I wouldn't call if I was feeling, depressed or upset, or that I wouldn't remove myself from a situation, like all of those things. And I guess that's why I just really don't sympathize any part of the Brain Laundrie story.
Oh, no, I don't either. And I wonder if, and by the way, not to back, I thought the greatest gift they got you was the Jason Williams cardboard cutout.
That was pretty great.
Okay.
That might be 1B.
I just wonder how many people, with the whole like less is more, and it's funny because I have friends that just went to Vegas for a week. And I've been to Vegas 3 times in my life. I don't think I've ever been there more than 3 days at a time.
Sure.
And I've told people, I don't know if you could do 4 days. Like it is unless you're unbelievably wealthy and you're going to this show on this night and this show on this night and money's no object, then I get, but it's so overstimulation. And if you sit down and you play cards or you play slots or you play whatever, you play roulette, like if you lose some money right away, they're like, how much you need to have you need to be Barkley with a bankroll to get yourself through.
Right.
And I know people who just went for a week. It was like, by the end of the week, it was a long week.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's people that, I don't want to say common sense comes in, but they're like, is it healthy for any couple to go on a drive, whether it's just the two of you? Like, at least if you have kids, and I know people who've taken kids on a cross-country ride, at least you got the kids to break it up. You've got something else other than us.
Right. Well, even just walking into a hotel, like even just the ability of like, there's a hotel and there's a lobby and there's a van is just kind of like and don't get me wrong, like I know they went places and did things. Right. I'm not saying they were locked in the van, but there is just that concept of like the van doesn't have separate rooms. There's not a bathroom to go, kind of like it's just I get your point.
That's why there's man caves, and that's why. I mean, imagine I'm sure there's married couples that are sitting there thinking that she watches, the Desperate Housewives in the living room, and she props her feet up, and she has her cup of coffee, and he is nowhere to be found because the last thing in the world he wants. And there is, even in the best marriages, there's so much independent time, maybe not alone time, but independent time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no, I mean, they don't have work to go to and then come home at night. They're just in the van. They're in the hotel. They're sleeping in the tent. They're doing all this. Right. And it is. So I don't know, maybe I'm making this out to be something because I've never tried it. But it just seems like, especially for a young couple, because young couples can be so volatile.
Yeah.
I mean,
I get it.
Older couples just kind of can roll with it a little better than.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you that the idea certainly is not sound. I just don't know how much mom and dad really come into it. I guess what I'm saying is, like, if there are defenders out there who would have said, why would the parents let them do that? Because there are people saying that. Like,
well, now
why would they ever let her go? And
but why would they ever suspect danger?
But, well,
like, you would suspect maybe they're going to break up. Maybe this is the end of the relationship, but you wouldn't expect.
And my thing was just like, he wasn't a stranger.
No, like, they lived together. They lived in the house.
And she was 23. So, like, I just don't. I guess to point the finger at the parents, I've never understood. As the story has gone on and on and on, I just don't understand that point of view. I just disagree with it.
No, because as a parent, you wouldn't think danger. I can't imagine. You would think arguments. You would think the relationship may be in danger. Sure. And I guess, weren't they engaged and then not engaged? And, like, I don't know. But they're a young couple. Like, that's part of it.
Anything else? Anything you want to touch on?
No, I do want to mention Chris Taylor last night. First player in Major League Baseball history to hit 3 home runs in a playoff game when his team was facing elimination. Reggie most famously hit the 3 home runs in October against the Dodgers back in whatever. Now Chris Taylor for that. But the Yankees were not facing elimination. If the Dodgers lost last night, they went home, and Taylor just kept hitting balls into the seats. And this is a guy, he hit the walk-off in the 1-game playoff, and he was so ice cold at the end of the regular season that he was out of the starting lineup.
Say the record again. What was the record?
3 home runs.
Okay.
In a playoff game where the team was facing elimination. Okay. Why did I say that multiple times?
Well, no, not at all. There was an interview with Patty Mills. He's a point guard for the Spurs.
Patty Mills.
Okay.
He's from somewhere.
Australia. He's a point guard now for the Nets. He was with the Spurs for a long time.
Did you see how he's from somewhere? Like, everyone's not from somewhere. I just meant he wasn't from the States. But you got what I was saying.
So the first game of the season a night ago, he set some record. He was like the first player to come off the Nets bench and go 100% with 3-3. It was something like that. And he was like with black socks and he just like kept going. And so, like, just picking on you baseball people a little bit, your fascination with records, once you get to like the third pause, like, I'm out on the record. Like, I don't need the record. 3 home runs
when his team was facing elimination. That's it.
That was it. That's it. There was no other thing to it.
It's an elimination game when his team was facing elimination, because they're elimination. Right. Like, right now, it's an elimination game tonight in Houston, but Houston's not facing elimination. It's just
the first player ever to hit 3 home runs in an elimination game when his team's facing elimination.
As a writer now, I've consolidated. I can say when his team was facing elimination, therefore it infers that it's an elimination game.
It was the first time ever where a Braves player didn't close out the series without stepping on the field while chewing pink bubble gum. Did you know that last night?
Well, they didn't.
Ronald Acuna set that record last night.
Did he?
No, that's a baseball record. I just can't. I'm sorry. You get so excited about them, and I feel bad.
Do you know how many?
I just don't.
Do you know in the history of baseball how many teams have faced elimination in the playoffs? Lots.
Okay.
And they can face it more than once. Like the Dodgers just faced elimination. They're going to face elimination again. What just happened? Am I still on?
There was the baseball facts.
My screen jumped.
Go ahead and talk.
Am I still there? Okay. If I can't see myself, I don't believe
the good thing is you don't make it obvious for the audience. So.
I don't know what just happened. My touchpad is very touchy, and now
you're very touchy. Anyway,
I don't know. It's awesome, and the fact that you don't like it just shows that you're less than.
I think it makes you like it more. Like, I almost think you look for them more because you know you're going to come in and like tell me this great baseball stat, and I'm just going to be like,
because this is the thing we've argued about with baseball. Like, he was. there was some he was like 8 for 72 in the last 3 weeks of the regular season.
Yes.
So you and I could go 8 for 72 almost, probably not. So they benched him.
Okay.
Well, then they bring him off the bench in the elimination game because they need pinch hitters, whatever. It's a walk-off home run. They win, yay. Now he's in the lineup again because he's gotten hot again. Good. And he's 3 home runs. Like, he has gone down in Dodger lore.
Yeah. I just feel like every game you could find something.
Not like that.
It's
not like that. And it's also, they're down 3-2. They're going to Atlanta. It's the last game of the year. If you have any sports romance in you at all, go on find the highlights, because if the Dodgers end up losing the series, this is the last home game for the Dodgers this year. And watch after Pollock hits another 3-run homer. Like, the place is blue euphoria in Dodger Stadium.
The irony there is that they didn't even sell out the first playoff game. Did you see that?
Against the Cardinals?
No, I think against the Braves.
Oh, okay.
Did you see that?
No.
They didn't even sell out, and it was kind of like a story, kind of like, what is going on here?
Well, it was sold out last night.
The first home game of the series.
And it was a madhouse when they're up 11-2, but like, when you watch it, it is just, I've told people, I know, like, going to an NFL game or going to a college football game is like that every week because the place is packed. There's 100,000 people or 75,000 people, whatever. You go to a baseball game in July and you're just relaxed. You're on your phone, you're talking, you're going to the concession stand. You go to a baseball playoff game when everyone is focused on every pitch and the place is loud and the place is packed. It is a different environment if you can ever get to one. I know you said you're going to the World Series if they get
if Atlanta gets in, I'm packing up the car. I'm going to Atlanta.
Take a couple thousand.
I'm going to start a Midday GoFundMe to get me to Atlanta.
You know, you don't need a GoFundMe. You just need to find that $11 million that's laying around. You can buy all the tickets you want.
Maybe I can take one of the vans that they.
You could take a van, a misappropriated van, and $11 million. Now that's a plan now, man.
Yeah, now you're in. Now you're in.
I wasn't in before. Now I'm sold.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news.
That's it. Worst college football weekend ever. We won't even talk about it.
We don't have to.
Next week's going to be great. This one,
I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you on Monday.
See ya.